last year I published the Human Rights Commission Amendment Bill, which was to address the shortfalls and the cutbacks. One of it was that the committee would be, the Human Rights Commission would be answerable to a committee. I don't have the power, the party doesn't have the power to progress it in private members' time, so hopefully at some stage with the help of the Labour Party we might discuss that as one of the issues that can be progressed and see whether we can get agreement across the board. There is Dáil reform discussions going on at the moment, and one of the mechanisms is being looked at is to have more debate in the Dáil around annual reports and the likes of basically state bodies or state appointed bodies, and that might at the very least, if that happens, and they're hoping to have the Dáil reform early in the new year, as in when we start back after January, that might facilitate some type of discussion about the annual report of the Human Rights Commission or the Equality Authority and other agencies, and that we don't end up with bodies being dismantled, such as the Common Poverty Agency or the National Drug Strategy, which was another body, even though they were answerable directly to the Parliament, which were critical of government policy, and the consequence of that seems to be of late is that you're dismembered. So hopefully some of that work will happen, and I'm committed to doing that. In relation to appointments, I think the ideal way is that they're open, transparent, and one of the mechanisms could be through a Dáil committee.
Okay, Ciarán?
Well, I was just going to make that point, and I think Fine Gael has graciously conceded that the Greens in government have moved towards making appointments from across the political floor of the Oireachtas to the Broadcasting Commission of Ireland, our Broadcasting Authority, to the RTE Board, and to other agencies, and we wish to do more of that. I think in an ideal world one would have an independent appointments commission which would be completely separate from government, but I think the halfway house that we have created in several bills that have become law recently is a move in the right direction. I think on the wider issue of agencies, there is a huge challenge at the moment, and there is a huge public concern at the amount of state agencies that have been created over the last 10, 15, 20 years. And I think, yes, we do have to safeguard equality, but I think in many areas of activity we have set up new authorities to do the work that the state should be doing well and competently itself.
That is that is Brian Lenihan's view. Before that, even 3 or 4 years ago, I've heard him say it.
Well, I'm heartened, and I don't often look to Leo Varadkar as a role model, but I'm heartened that Leo Varadkar has identified this as an issue as well. And I think what I find on the ground from people who are interacting with state agencies, particularly in the area of employment at the moment, because that is when we've seen the doubling of unemployment, people are genuinely confused at the role of county enterprise boards, county partnerships, local authorities, and the plethora of agencies that have been set up. My personal view is that we need to consolidate and give local authorities more power. That's not as relevant to this gathering as it might be, but I think we do have to look long and hard at a time of scarce resources at how to best simplify and make it easier for the general public to interact with the state.
Yeah, but I don't need to tell this room that there are many people who are appointed to these quangos who are paid nothing for being on the quangos, give their own time. Sometimes it costs them to be there, and yet they may be, I mean, I know 1 or 2 Green people who are appointed. They're first-rate people. And the notion that you wouldn't appoint them because they're of the same party would be a loss to the body politic. And they're not paid at all for doing it. And if they travel, they're meant to travel second class on the railway line, and so on. So, you know, it's very easy to be kind of politically correct about all of this and one-dimensional. It's quite a complex area. But somebody wants to come up down at the back there, yeah.
And I think this question of independence is critical. And we've been talking a lot about the independence of the equality and human rights institutions. But clearly the record of this state is when there's a strong, independent, autonomous community and voluntary sector in place, that is what actually often holds these quangos and institutions to account, as well as being accountable to the state. And we're seeing a pattern at the moment of a complete, a dismantling of independent community and voluntary sector organisations, which represent the voice and interests of communities who are experiencing inequality and discrimination. So just to take up on Kieran's point there, giving more power and strength to local authorities to actually is somehow an approach to joining up the dots from the local to the national is actually probably, I don't ultimately disagree with that point, but what's actually happening is that the independent community sector is being brought in under that infrastructure, local authorities, partnerships, a number of agencies, and the voice and independence is being lost, and that's a critical loss for any kind of a democratic society. So I'd love to know what the various political parties represented here are going to do to support an independent community sector in this country.